Time for hard statements which will bite me in the back in future years, but my dear nerds, you will never see me do these two things on this channel ever. One, you will never see me emulate Nintendo DS, and the second is that you will never see me emulate Nintendo 3DS. And it's not because we might not have good emulators. We may have the best emulators ever with 100% accuracy and great performance, I will still not emulate them. And that's because they are two-screened freaking devices. They have two screens, and to our disappointment, almost all of these emulation shells which we have, because don't get me wrong, all of the emulation devices, they are shells, they are simple mediums through which we run these old pieces of software that come in the form of ROMs. But they are all tailored towards one-screen devices like the PSP, GBA, PS1, PS2, that kind of stuff. That's why the Retroids of the world and the Anbernecks of the world, they only have basically one type of main form factor, and that is a screen and buttons and do whatever you want with it. And I will die on this hill. Two screen devices shouldn't be emulated on our current emulation devices simply because the experience is horrible. Splitting your two screens into the real estate of one screen and having the main screen bigger and the secondary screen in one sad corner there, well, the experience of that is just as horrible as what I felt when I first tried to emulate my first games on Android and I only used the touch screen of my phone and my fingers. You try playing GBA like this, it's depressing, really. So I will say something that you will never hear me say about most other handhelds, but for certain platforms, we simply need original hardware if we are to enjoy them as we should. Of course, you can ride a pig and pretend that it's a horse, but it's not really a horse, is it? You'd be just a sad guy riding a pig pretending that it's a horse. So imagine how delighted I was when Red Pro Club contacted me and sent me this bad boy. This right here, my nerds, is the Nintendo 3DS XL in mint condition because they restored it. And playing these games which require two screens, well, it was simply a delight on original hardware. And good condition original hardware to start with. I would say that this was the best experience that anyone can ask for when it comes to first experiencing 3DS. Because make no mistake, this is the first time for me when I experience actual 3DS games or the console itself, and this was in 2024 on mint condition, almost hardware. But anyway, before I continue, I just want to say that even though Red Pro Club sent me this, they are not the usual store that you might think with emulation, handhelds and so on and so forth. Their exclusive thing is taking old original hardware like PSPs, PS Vitas, Nintendo 3DSs, DSs and so on and so forth. They meticulously replace what needs to be replaced so they can make them in as mint condition as possible. And this is something that I simply cannot hate. Of course, be prepared that for such a manual process, the prices are a bit up there, but at the end of the day, you will end up with something that's totally worth putting in your collection, because look at this thing. It looks like it was taken straight out of 2013. However, my dear nerds, I just want to quickly mention that even though Red Pro Club sent me this nice looking 3DS XL, this is my own video, no money exchanged hands, all opinions here are my own, so sit back, relax, do your thing, carb of choice, you snack, you listen, you enjoy, and let's continue on with this video. Now, I'm not gonna dive into the software or the games too much because, well, I mean, dangerous territory here. You know why, Nintendo's pretty aggressive these days. Nintendo, don't worry, I'm not gonna show anything, don't freaking copyright strike me. We are friends, okay? However, I want this video to be a homage or whatever the heck the pronunciation is, to the fact that original hardware, reconditioned original hardware, is something that is so freaking amazing. You know, I'm of the firm belief that emulation handhelds have been so successful because they tap in our nostalgia. They tap in our brain's need to recreate the moments when we felt pleasure in the past, when we formed actually enjoyable funny core memories. And for many of us, sitting in front of the TV or having something like this in the hand, those are the memories that I speak of. And nothing gets to recreate those memories better than the actual hardware that we held in our hands when those memories were created. So this, for all intents and purposes, is a luxury right now. This should be scuffed up, this should be torn through life, this should look like poop right now. But fortunately enough, people that are way more capable than me had their hands on this and made it presentable. However, and I'm gonna talk about a defect here later on in the video, but I just want us to gush a bit over this and to present the realities of the thing. You will see some defects like the 3DS XL from what I read on Reddit. Again, I never actually had a 3DS as a kid, but Reddit says that most of the 3DS XLs never properly closed. Do you see the gap here between the screens? At first I thought maybe this model was defective, but no, this is a 3DS XL thing, and the games, surprisingly enough, even though this thing was released 12 and soon to be 13 years ago, they look pretty freaking nice. Like, this is a good experience. I played with it for a few weeks now, and it's shocking to me that 3DS games mostly look even better than a lot of Android games today. Of course, you will see defects like look at the resolution. Do you see the pixels? Of course you see the pixels. The 3DS XL screen doesn't have a super big resolution, but still, this is perfectly enjoyable. And this is hardware especially made for 2-screen games. Now, the part that I don't necessarily agree with is that Red Pro Club pre-bundles these handhelds with a ton of games, and I mean an absolute ton. They basically mod this thing and they send it to you all locked and loaded to enjoy the second it comes out of the mail. But this, I know, raises some concerns. I personally think that retro emulation is okay, but considering who actually made this, I would be way more comfortable showing this off to you if it were empty. You know, like a blank slate where we could just appreciate the hardware itself. But anyway, if you don't know a lot about the 3DS XL, I'm gonna give you a quick tour guide of what I learned about it since I had it for a few weeks, or I think it's more than a month by this point. The gist of it is that this is a gaming handheld with 2 screens, which was actually quite powerful for its time. The 2 screens are quite unique because this is a touch screen, a resistive touch screen, so not as sensitive as the modern smartphone, and a bigger 3D screen whose effect you can customize via this slider. And this is a nice gimmick. And I guess this is what we need to remember about the 3DS and 3DS XL. They were a handheld that I think for handheld standards got born in the worst possible time, right before the smartphone rose up and dominated the market. So in many ways, the 3DS XL, and of course its little brother, the 3DS, tried to be many things at once. It tried to be smart like a smartphone, and yet a handheld at the same time, and smart at the same time, but I know, it just feels like a doner kebab with everything on it. I would have preferred it to focus on less things, but in a better way, if this makes any sense. But anyway, as a quick tour, we have the volume slider here. We have a very nice recessed knob, which doesn't stick out, but yeah, people either love these or they hate them. I have mixed feelings over these. There's a D-pad here, which it's clicky, not the best, not the worst. Of course, we have the buttons, 3 buttons at the bottom, select start and home, the power button, the 3D slider, 2 speakers here, which is awesome. And this is where it gets funky. It has 2 cameras on the back for the 3D effect. Now, I'm not gonna get into this because I doubt a lot of people would be interested in this. There's a freaking included stylus for the touch screen on the inside. For some games and for some menu navigation, it's actually pretty good. If only I could aim. There's a button to activate the wireless module, which is interesting, an SD card slot, the pen slot, and that's about it, I think. And it feels like a real chunker in the hand. It's quite big, but it's not as big feeling as it actually should feel, because when you open it up, you have a massive canvas here. You have two fairly big screens, I would say. Now, I don't know the actual inches that we're working here, but this feels like a big guy, like a freaking chunker. Look, here's a controller from Easy SMX as a point of comparison. This is a full-fledged Xbox-like controller. And for those who are familiar with this, here's a normal Nintendo DS Lite, which I bought from a farmer's market, and I kept promising myself that I would restore, which I never got a chance to. Just look at this poor yellow guy. Yeah, this one has definitely seen better days. But this actually takes me to the main point of why you would buy a restored handheld like this. You see, my dear nerds, restoring a 3DS or a DS or whatever is such a pain in the backside. I tried it at one point with this. I went down the rabbit hole, I looked at the YouTube videos. I can't do it. I'll admit, I would destroy this thing without even wanting to. So, when it comes to the restoration of complex handhelds like these two screened mother flippers, I would recommend paying extra and letting some smarter guy do it. There's no shame in admitting that we're horrible at something. There's not. At least that's what I tell myself when I'm horrible at something. And I want to emphasize that buying a restored handheld like this is a freaking luxury. It won't necessarily be cheap. And Red Pro Club, I think, knows this. They have different prices for different levels of restoration. A mint condition one will be more expensive than one with scuffs and blah blah blah. But from my interactions with the guy at Red Pro Club, I will say this. There are few people that felt as compulsively, obsessively passionate about something than that guy. And I love this. These are the kinds of people that I would trust with stuff like this. Even though this bit them in the backside with this particular handheld, I will mention this in a bit, but just to finish my thought, with restoration of original hardware, it's best to let people who have done this before handle it. And I wouldn't recommend anyone to go on the second-hand market, because when it comes to hardware that has more than 10 years old in it, there's simply a lot of hidden defects that the handheld can have, which you wouldn't be able to know about, like a battery that would start to bloat up and become a spicy pillow, the fact that certain buttons might be at their end of life and you will have to scramble to try and fix them, there's shell swaps which require a complete disassembly. I'm just getting tired just thinking about this. Original hardware, personally, I came to the conclusion that I'm not touching that. I would rather, just as I would go with my TV to a repair shop, I'm thinking 90s over here, and I wouldn't fix it myself, I would have the same mentality for original hardware. Now, bear in mind, I'm not talking about emulation handhelds. I'm talking about things that are in finite quantity and things where if you mess it up, you kill it, and it's not as easy to replace. But one thing to mention with this particular unit, and I'm sure this is a one-off and you really don't have anything to worry about, but something happened with this handheld, and maybe it's because this was meant to be a review unit and the guys were overzealous with it, but what they did, unfortunately, was that they over-tightened the screws. And because they over-tightened the screws, in time, a few things happened. You see, there's a little crack here by the screw, and a little crack here by the screw, and a little crack here that formed. And this thing sat on my shelf for like a month, let's say, and my interactions with it were a few hours, I would say. And as far as Reddit told me, this happens when you over-tighten stuff. But to be honest, I understand why this happened. They probably wanted it not to creak, to feel as solid as possible, and this kind of backfired. And I'm sorry for this incident, I truly am, but I had to mention this, otherwise I would be... How could you have credibility in me if I wouldn't mention stuff like this? So, if you do get one, which I honestly encourage, just make sure to leave them a message with, hey guys, don't overscrew them. I'm okay with a bit of creaking, it's plastic that's super old by this point, and honestly, this is the best that we can hope for. You see, a bit of creaking, in my opinion, adds to the history of this thing. The fact of the matter is that this, well, and there's a few smudges here, but this appears like new. But this is 12 freaking years old, released in July of 2012, if my memory serves me right. So this is ancient for handheld standards, but it was like it used lotion on its skin its entire life to look this good at this advanced age. So yeah, I know this video is a bit different, but original hardware does have a talking point in our niche. At least that's what I think of. Especially hardware that makes it difficult for us to emulate the software and the ROMs that were originally designed for it. Because this has two screens, it will always suck as an emulation experience. But at the same time, there's the debate going on of practicality versus accuracy and versus fidelity in the experience that we want to have. This offers an identical experience for those who grew up with the DS or 3DS or whatever they want. And by the way, you can emulate stuff on this as well. But at the same time, just as we used to emulate on our phones, at least I think most of us started from there, we could still do that. It wasn't the best experience, but it was the cheapest point of entry to emulation that we had. This happens, in my opinion, to be one of the more expensive points of entry for emulation, but it's the most accurate and the most picture-perfect way of reliving those times that people had with this handheld or with the 2DS or DS Lite or whatever. I'm saying whatever because you can play all those games on the 3DS XL as well. So yeah, my dear nerds, let me know what you think. Out of curiosity, do you want me covering original hardware in the future as well? Or should I keep to our normal things and normal emulation handhelds? Or do you like this? This is sort of a special episode that I did. You know, I'm gaga over this. I would say honored that I was introduced to the 3DS XL in such a pristine way. And Nintendo, if you watch this, don't copyright strike me. First of all, I didn't show emulation, I didn't do anything. Second, this is a video that serves to be an homage to your original hardware, to the fact that this has historical value, to the fact that people, maybe they didn't appreciate this in the past, but they should appreciate what you did here in the present and in the future, in 2025 or until Anbernick creates a dual screen handheld. But yeah, remember, we are friends, Nintendo. I hope so. But enough from me, my dear nerds. This is me yammering by this point. Let me know what you think of this cute little toy. Let me know what you think if I should try to recondition this, even though I don't think I have the skill set for this, to be honest. And last but not least, don't forget that I love you very much. I always did, and I always will. Heck, I'm filming this at 7:37 AM. My sleeping schedule is like this, you know, totally upside down. Yeah. But anyway, my nerds, this is all from me. As always, don't forget that I love you very, very much. Bye.